The night I broke my wrist was the night I finally understood that my family never loved me at all. Christmas Eve in Portland should have been magical. The Douglas fir in our living room touched the cathedral ceiling, its branches heavy with ornaments that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Outside, snow dusted the streets of our upscale neighborhood in the West Hills, and the city lights twinkled below like fallen stars. Inside our pristine craftsman home, I had spent 14 hours preparing a feast that would have impressed any Michelin-starred restaurant. My hands were raw from chopping, stirring, and plating. The dining table gleamed with Mother's best china, the same set Grandma Eleanor had left us, each piece worth thousands. But as I looked around at my family, gathered in the living room while I worked alone in the kitchen, I felt nothing but cold dread settling in my stomach. My older sister Victoria sat on the velvet sofa, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass as she scrolled through her phone. At 26, she was everything I was not. Tall, confident, beautiful in that effortless way that turned heads wherever she went. She had Father's strong jawline and Mother's pale blue eyes. I had neither. Victoria worked in marketing for a tech startup downtown, though she rarely actually worked. Most of her time was spent shopping with Father's credit card or posting carefully curated photos on Instagram that made our family look like something out of a lifestyle magazine. My younger brother Marcus, only 16, sprawled in Father's leather armchair, his gaming headset on, thumbs flying across his phone screen. He had barely looked up when I asked him to set the table hours ago. Mother had intervened immediately with that saccharine tone she reserved for him alone, saying he was too tired, that he had exams coming up, that I should handle it myself since I was already in the kitchen anyway. Mother and Father sat together on the love seat near the fireplace. Richard Ashford, real estate developer, pillar of the Portland business community. Margaret Ashford, formerly Margaret Chen, socialite and philanthropist who organized charity galas and served on nonprofit boards. They looked perfect together, the ideal American success story. Immigrant family made good. First-generation wealth built through hard work and determination. Or so the narrative went. None of them noticed me standing in the doorway, my arms trembling from exhaustion. I had been cooking since dawn. Herb-crusted prime rib, garlic mashed potatoes, roasted Brussels sprouts with bacon, homemade rolls, 3 different desserts. I had wanted it to be perfect. I always wanted everything to be perfect. Maybe if dinner was perfect, if the house was spotless, if I never complained, if I just tried hard enough, they would finally see me, finally appreciate me, finally love me the way they loved Victoria and Marcus. What a foolish, desperate dream that had been. Victoria noticed me first. She glanced up from her phone, and her lip curled in that familiar expression of disdain. "You look like a mess, Daisy. Maybe go fix your hair before dinner? We're taking family photos later." I touched my hair self-consciously. It was frizzy from the kitchen steam, pulled back in a messy ponytail. I had been too busy cooking to worry about how I looked. "Dinner's almost ready," I said quietly. "I just need to get the cloth napkins from upstairs, the ones Grandma embroidered." "You're putting on quite a show," Victoria said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Who needs restaurant-quality food when it's just family? You always have to make everything so extra, don't you?" Mother looked over, and I saw the familiar flicker of irritation cross her face. "The food's probably cold again, Daisy. It's always cold when you cook. You spend so much time making everything look fancy that you forget about timing." The words stung, even though I was used to them. I had used 3 warming trays specifically to keep everything hot. But contradicting Mother never ended well. "I'll bring everything out now," I managed. "Just hurry up," Father said without looking at me. "We're hungry." I turned toward the stairs, my throat tight. 14 hours of work, and this was the thanks I got. Criticism and impatience, nothing new. As I climbed the curved staircase to the second floor, I heard Victoria's voice float up from below, louder than necessary, clearly meant for me to hear. "She's so desperate for attention. It's honestly pathetic." Marcus laughed, a cruel little sound. "For real. Who even eats Brussels sprouts?" I gripped the banister, fighting back tears. "Just get the napkins. Get through dinner. Get through Christmas. You've survived this long. You can survive one more night." The linen closet was at the end of the hallway, past my small bedroom, and Victoria's much larger suite. I found the napkins quickly, the delicate embroidery that Grandma had done by hand, each one unique. She had been working on them the last year of her life, one for each member of the family. Mine had a small daisy stitched in the corner, along with the words, "Brave Heart," in tiny letters. I had cried when I first saw it, understanding that Grandma had known. She had always known what I endured. I was folding them carefully when I heard footsteps behind me. Victoria stood in the hallway, her expression unreadable. For a moment I thought maybe she had come to help, or to apologize for her earlier comments. We used to be close when we were little, before everything changed. Before she realized that aligning herself with our parents meant an easier life, more privileges, more love. "You really think you're special, don't you?" she said softly, and something in her tone made my blood run cold. "What are you talking about?" I held the napkins against my chest like a shield. Playing the martyr. Cooking all day. Acting like you're so generous and selfless. She took a step closer. You think we don't see what you're doing? Trying to make us look bad? I was just making dinner, I said, my voice shaking. That's all. I wanted us to have a nice Christmas. You wanted to show off. You wanted to make Mother look bad because she didn't cook. You wanted Father to notice you for once. Her voice was venomous now, all pretense dropped. Well, guess what, Daisy? Nobody cares. Nobody is ever going to care about you the way they care about me or Marcus. The words hit me like physical blows. Why are you saying this? What did I ever do to you? You exist? Victoria hissed. You exist and you're always there, always trying so hard, always making the rest of us look bad by comparison. Do you know how annoying it is? How pathetic you are? I stepped backward, toward the stairs. I'm going back downstairs. No, Victoria said, and she moved faster than I expected. Her hands hit my shoulders hard, a violent shove that sent me backward. I didn't even have time to scream. My foot missed the top step, and then I was falling, tumbling down the hardwood stairs, my body hitting each step with brutal force. The napkins flew from my hands, white fabric floating through the air like snow. The sound of my wrist breaking was distinct, a sharp crack that I both heard and felt, followed by an explosion of pain so intense that the world went white. I landed at the bottom of the stairs in a heap, my left wrist bent at an unnatural angle, my head spinning, my body screaming in agony. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Victoria's voice from above, cold and clear. Oops! And then she laughed. A soft, satisfied laugh that told me everything I needed to know. It hadn't been an accident. It had been deliberate. I waited for the rush of footsteps. For someone to run to me. For my parents to come. For Marcus to call 911. For anyone to show even the slightest bit of concern. But the living room had gone silent for only a moment before Father's voice cut through the air, heavy with irritation. Are you kidding me right now? What kind of scene are you trying to make, Daisy? I tried to speak, but only a whimper came out. The pain was overwhelming. My wrist was definitely broken. I could see the bone pushing against the skin. I might have hit my head, too. Everything felt wrong and dizzy. Victoria descended the stairs slowly, stepping over me with theatrical care. She just fell, she announced. So clumsy. She really needs to be more careful. Mother appeared in the foyer, and for one desperate second, I thought she would help. But she just looked down at me with that familiar expression of annoyance, as if I had spilled wine on her carpet instead of just broken my wrist falling down the stairs. This is so typical, Daisy. You always have to make everything about you, don't you? It's Christmas Eve. Do you have any idea how this ruins everything? My wrist, I gasped. It's broken. I need help. You're being dramatic, Mother said. She didn't even crouch down to look at my injury. Get up and stop being so theatrical. Marcus appeared, still wearing his headset around his neck. He looked at me, sprawled on the floor, and laughed. Actually laughed. Dude, she went down like a cartoon character. That was hilarious. Something inside me shattered in that moment, something far more important than my wrist. I looked at each of their faces. Father, annoyed and impatient. Mother, disgusted and inconvenienced. Marcus, amused by my pain. And Victoria, standing behind them all with the faintest smirk on her perfect face, her eyes daring me to tell the truth. No one was going to help me. No one cared that I was hurt. No one cared that I was in agony. They had never cared. They would never care. I used my good hand to push myself up. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through my body, but I forced myself to stand. My left arm hung uselessly at my side, the wrist swelling rapidly, turning purple and grotesque. I could feel blood trickling down my temple from where I had hit my head. I'm going to the hospital, I said, and my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. Flat, cold, empty. Finally, some sense, Father said. Don't expect us to wait up. We have dinner to eat. And clean up this mess first, Mother added, gesturing to the scattered napkins on the stairs. Those are Grandma Eleanor's good linens. I looked at the napkins, at the delicate embroidery, at the one with my name on it, the one that said, Braveheart. I left them there on the stairs and walked out the front door. Behind me, I heard Victoria say something, and they all laughed. The sound followed me out into the cold December night, where the snow was falling harder now, covering everything in pristine white, covering up all the ugly truth underneath. I drove myself to Providence Portland Medical Center with one hand, tears streaming down my face, not from the pain, though that was excruciating, from the realization, from the understanding that had finally broken through my desperate denial. My family didn't love me. They had never loved me. I was not a daughter or a sister to them. I was a servant. A punching bag. A scapegoat. Something to use and abuse and blame. And I had let them do it for 23 years. The emergency room was busy on Christmas Eve, full of people with their own crises and emergencies. A kind nurse named Patricia took one look at my wrist and fast-tracked me through triage. While I waited for the doctor, She gently cleaned the cut on my forehead and asked the question I had been dreading. How did this happen, sweetie? I could have told the truth. I could have said my sister pushed me down the stairs. I could have started the process right then and there. But old habits died hard, and I heard myself say, I fell. Patricia's eyes were kind but knowing. She had seen this before. Honey, that wrist is severely fractured. You're going to need surgery. And that head wound, we need to do a CT scan to make sure there's no concussion or worse. Falls like this, they don't usually happen on their own. I'm just clumsy, I whispered. She squeezed my good hand. Okay, but if you ever want to talk about what really happened, we have resources. Social workers, counselors. You don't have to protect anyone who hurt you. The X-rays confirmed what I already knew, complete fracture of the distal radius and ulna. I needed surgery immediately to set the bones with pins. The CT scan showed a mild concussion but no bleeding in my brain, thank God. They admitted me and scheduled surgery for early Christmas morning. I spent Christmas Eve in a hospital bed, alone. My phone buzzed a few times. One text from Mother, "Where are you? You need to come back and clean up your mess." One from Victoria, "Stop being dramatic and come home." Nothing from Father, nothing from Marcus. I turned off my phone. At midnight, a surgeon came in to explain the procedure. Dr. Morrison was in his 50s, with tired eyes and a gentle manner. "You're lucky," he said. "A fall like that could have been so much worse, but we'll get you fixed up. You'll need physical therapy, and the recovery will take months, but you'll get full function back eventually." "Thank you," I said. "Is someone coming to be with you for the surgery, family?" I almost laughed. "No, I'm alone." Something in his expression softened. "Then I'll make sure the nurses take extra good care of you. No one should be alone on Christmas." The surgery went well. When I woke up on Christmas morning, my left arm was in a cast from knuckles to elbow, stabilized with metal pins I couldn't see but could feel. The concussion made me nauseous and dizzy. Patricia was there when I came out of anesthesia, holding my hand. "You have somewhere safe to go when we discharge you?" she asked. I thought about the house in the West Hills, my small room that was really just a converted storage space, the constant criticism, the casual cruelty. Victoria's smirk. "No," I said. "I don't." Patricia nodded as if she had expected this answer. She gave me a list of resources, including a women's shelter and a number for a domestic violence hotline. "Even if it's family," she said, "even if they never hit you before, this counts. What happened to you counts. You don't have to go back." I took the papers with my good hand. Something was shifting inside me, something fundamental. The old Daisy, the one who desperately wanted to be loved and accepted, who tried so hard to be perfect, who absorbed every insult and injury without complaint, she was dying. And in her place, something harder and colder was being born. They discharged me that afternoon with pain medication, instructions for wound care, and a follow-up appointment in a week. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to a motel on 82nd Avenue, the kind of place that rented by the week and didn't ask questions. The room was dingy and smelled like cigarette smoke, but it was mine. No one would criticize me here. No one would push me downstairs. I sat on the sagging bed and opened my laptop with one hand, an awkward process that made my broken wrist throb, but I managed. I had been planning for this moment longer than I wanted to admit, even to myself. Some part of me had always known it would come to this. 3 months ago, I had installed hidden cameras throughout the house. Tiny devices disguised as smoke detectors, phone chargers, and picture frames. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overreacting. But deep down, I had known I would need evidence someday. Evidence of what they really were. Evidence that I wasn't crazy or dramatic or oversensitive, the way they always claimed. The cameras had motion activation and cloud storage. I logged into the account now and scrolled through the footage from Christmas Eve. There it was. Crystal clear, high definition. Victoria, following me upstairs. The conversation in the hallway, every word captured by the camera hidden in the hallway, smoke detector. And then the shove. The deliberate, violent shove, my body tumbling down the stairs. The sickening crack of my wrist breaking, my cry of pain. And then, even worse, the aftermath. My father's cruel dismissal, my mother's disgust, Marcus's laughter, Victoria's satisfied smirk. All of it, every terrible second, recorded and saved. I watched it 3 times, my good hand clenched into a fist. The pain medication made everything feel distant and dreamlike, but the rage burning in my chest was very real. This wasn't just about the stairs. This was about a lifetime. This was about every time Victoria had accidentally broken my things when we were kids. Every time she had told lies that got me punished. Every bruise she had given me that I had been forced to explain away. Every cruel word, every dismissal, every moment of being made to feel like I didn't matter. And my parents had enabled it all. They had chosen her, always her, and I had been left with nothing but the desperate hope that someday, somehow, I could earn their love. But you couldn't earn something that was never available in the first place. I opened a new browser window and began to search. What I found made that cold, hard thing inside me grow even stronger. Grandma Eleanor's will. I had a copy saved on my laptop, though I hadn't looked at it in years. Mother and father had dismissed it as the ramblings of a senile old woman, and I had been too young and too desperate for their approval to question them. But I read it now with new eyes. And I understood exactly what Grandma had been trying to do. The house, the investments, the stocks. Everything was to be divided equally between all three children when Marcus turned 25. But there was a clause, a very specific clause that my parents had tried very hard to ignore. If any heir provided documented evidence of abuse, neglect, or mistreatment by other family members, the abusers would be completely disinherited, and the victim would receive full control of the estate. Grandma Eleanor had known. She had seen what was happening and had tried to protect me the only way she could. The estate was worth millions. The house alone was valued at over $2 million. The investments in stocks added several million more. Grandma had been careful with her money, growing the wealth she had built with Grandpa before he died, and she had wanted to make sure I was safe. I laughed then, a sound that was half sob. "I hear you, Grandma," I whispered to the empty motel room. "I finally hear you." It was too late to call a lawyer on Christmas Day, but I used the time to organize everything. I downloaded every video from the cameras, not just from Christmas Eve, but from the past 3 months. Hours and hours of footage showing Victoria's casual cruelty, my parents' favoritism, Marcus's entitled behavior. I created a timeline. I wrote down every incident I could remember from childhood, every bruise, every insult, every moment of being made to feel worthless. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. My wrist throbbed despite the pain medication. My head ached, but I felt more clear-headed than I had in years. They thought they had broken me. They thought I would come crawling back, apologizing for ruining Christmas, begging for forgiveness, accepting my role as the family scapegoat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, I called my best friend from college, Emma Chen. We had lost touch over the past few years. Not because we had fought, but because I had been too ashamed to let her see what my life had become. She had visited the house once during sophomore year and had seen the way my family treated me. She had pulled me aside and asked if I was okay, if I needed help getting out. I had defended them, made excuses, insisted everything was fine. She had looked at me with such sadness and said, "When you're ready to admit the truth, I'll be here." I hadn't called her since, until now. She answered on the second ring. "Daisy?" "Hi, Emma." My voice cracked. "I'm ready to admit the truth." There was a pause, and then she said, "Tell me where you are. I'm coming to get you." Emma arrived at the motel within an hour, and when she saw me, her face went pale. The bruises from my fall had bloomed overnight, purple and yellow across my cheek and temple, my arm in its cast. The hollow look in my eyes. She didn't say "I told you so." She didn't ask why I had waited so long. She just wrapped her arms around me carefully and let me cry into her shoulder. Later, in her apartment in the Pearl District, over cups of tea that I could barely hold with my shaking good hand, I told her everything. Not just about Christmas Eve, but about everything. The entire 23 years of being the least favorite child. And then I showed her the videos. Emma watched in silence, her expression growing darker with each clip. When I showed her the footage of Victoria pushing me, she actually gasped. "Oh my God, Daisy, this is assault. This is attempted murder." "I know," I said. "You could go to the police right now." "I know, but I want to do this right. I want to make sure they can't weasel out of it. I want to use Grandma's will." Emma nodded slowly. "You need a lawyer, a really good one." She made some calls. Emma worked in tech like half of Portland, but she had connections everywhere. By that afternoon, she had the name of someone who could help. Malcolm Thorne, a family law attorney who specialized in complex estate cases and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. "He's expensive," Emma warned, "but he's the best." "I have some money saved," I said. It wasn't much, but I had been secretly setting aside cash for years, hiding it from my family, just in case. I had always been planning my escape, even when I didn't want to admit it to myself. The appointment was set for December 28th. In the meantime, I stayed with Emma. My family called and texted constantly. The messages evolved from annoyed to angry to manipulative. "Mother, Daisy, this is ridiculous. Come home right now. You're embarrassing the family." "Father, I don't know what kind of stunt you're pulling, but it needs to stop. You have responsibilities here." "Victoria, you're being a child. No one pushed you. You fell because you're clumsy. Stop trying to make this into some drama." "Marcus, Mom's crying because of you. Way to ruin everything." I didn't respond to any of them. Each message just added to my resolve. On December 28th, I walked into Malcolm Thorne's office in downtown Portland. The law firm occupied the top floor of a sleek building near Pioneer Square, all glass and steel and expensive furniture. I felt small and out of place in my jeans and hoodie, my arm in its cast, my face still bruised. But Malcolm Thorne didn't make me feel small. He was in his mid-50s, with silver hair and sharp gray eyes that missed nothing. He shook my good hand gently and gestured for me to sit. "Emma speaks very highly of you," he said. "She told me a bit about your situation, but I'd like to hear it from you directly." So I told him. Everything. He listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. His expression remained neutral throughout, professional. But when I got to the part about Christmas Eve, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Anger, quickly controlled. When I finished, he set down his pen. "Do you have documentation? Medical records?" I pulled out the folder I had prepared. Hospital records, photos of my injuries, the police report, because even though I hadn't pressed charges, the hospital had filed one anyway per protocol. And then, the videos. Malcolm watched the footage from Christmas Eve on his computer. I watched his face instead of the screen. I couldn't bear to see it again. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched on his desk. When it finished, he looked at me with something like respect. "Miss Ashford, this is one of the clearest cases of assault and family abuse I've seen in my 25-year career. The video evidence alone is damning. Combined with your grandmother's will, which I'll need to review, but based on what you've told me, you have an airtight case." "Can I get them out of the house?" I asked. "Can I make them pay?" "Miss Ashford," he said, leaning forward, "with this evidence, I can do more than that. I can ensure they face criminal charges. I can have your sister prosecuted for assault. I can activate the clause in your grandmother's will and have your parents and siblings completely disinherited. You will have full control of the estate. The house, the money, everything." The words hung in the air between us. Everything I had ever wanted. Justice, vindication, revenge. "How long will it take?" I asked. "That depends on how they respond. If they fight, it could take months, even years. If they're smart and accept a settlement, it could be resolved in weeks." "I want them to know what they did," I said. "I want them to face consequences." Malcolm smiled, a thin, sharp smile. "Then we'll make sure they do. I'll draft a letter to be delivered to them immediately, informing them of your intent to pursue full inheritance under the abuse clause of the will. I'll attach the video evidence and medical records. They'll have 72 hours to respond. What if they try to claim the videos are fake or illegal? Oregon is a one-party consent state for recording. You were present during all of these interactions, which makes the recordings legal. As for them being fake, we'll have them forensically authenticated. They won't be able to dispute them." I felt something loosening in my chest. Something that had been wound tight for so long I had forgotten it was there. "Do it," I said. "Send the letter." Malcolm stood and extended his hand. "It would be my honor to represent you, Miss Ashford. Your grandmother sounds like she was a remarkable woman. I'm glad she had the foresight to protect you." "She was the only one who ever did," I said quietly. The letter went out the next morning via courier. I watched from Emma's apartment window as the courier van drove away, carrying with it the end of my old life and the beginning of something new. 24 hours later, my phone exploded. The calls came first. Father, shouting into voicemail about lawsuits and defamation and how dare I embarrass the family like this. Mother, her voice shrill and panicked, claiming I was misunderstanding everything, that it was all a terrible accident, that families work through these things together. Victoria, her voice shaking with rage, calling me every name she could think of, threatening to destroy me. Then, the texts. Hundreds of them. Some pleading, some threatening, some trying to manipulate me with guilt and obligation. "Victoria, you're going to regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what a lying, manipulative bitch you are." "Mother, how can you do this to your own mother? After everything I've done for you, you're breaking my heart." "Father, this is extortion. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." "Marcus, you're seriously going to fuck over your whole family because you're butthurt? Grow up." I showed them all to Malcolm. He read them calmly and added them to the file. "They're panicking," he said. "Good, let them panic." On day 3, the response came. Not from my family directly, but from their lawyer, a man named Jeffrey Whitmore, who represented several wealthy families in Portland. His letter was formal and cold, denying all allegations, claiming the videos were taken without consent and therefore inadmissible, and threatening to countersue for emotional distress and invasion of privacy. Malcolm read it and laughed. Actually laughed. Typical. He's bluffing. The recordings are legal, and he knows it. He's trying to scare you into backing down. "I'm not backing down," I said. "Good, because neither am I." The legal battle began in earnest. Malcolm filed a petition with the probate court to enforce the abuse clause in Grandma Eleanor's will. He submitted the videos, the medical records, the police report, and my written testimony detailing years of mistreatment. He requested an emergency hearing, arguing that I was still in danger and needed immediate protection. The hearing was scheduled for mid-January. In the meantime, I had to give a deposition, answering questions from both Malcolm and Jeffrey Whitmore. It was brutal. Whitmore tried every tactic to discredit me. to make me seem unstable, vindictive, money-hungry. But I had the truth on my side, and I had evidence. When he asked me why I had installed cameras in the house, I looked him straight in the eye and said, because I knew someday I would need proof. Because I knew no one would believe me without it. Because I've spent my entire life being told I'm dramatic and oversensitive and making things up, I wasn't going to let them gaslight me anymore. The deposition lasted 6 hours. By the end, I was exhausted and shaking, but Malcolm told me I had done well, that my testimony was strong. Meanwhile, my family launched their own offensive. Mother posted on Facebook about how her ungrateful daughter was tearing the family apart over a simple accident. Victoria gave interviews to local news outlets, playing the victim, claiming I was mentally unstable and making false accusations. Father hired a PR firm to manage the family's image, but public opinion was not on their side. The story of a young woman being pushed downstairs by her sister and then dismissed by her family struck a nerve, especially when portions of the video leaked online. I don't know who leaked it. Maybe someone from the court, maybe Malcolm's team. But suddenly, it was everywhere. The comment sections were brutal toward my family. People who had done business with my father came forward with stories of his ruthlessness. People who had gone to school with Victoria shared tales of her bullying. Even Marcus's classmates posted about his entitled behavior. My family's carefully crafted image crumbled in a matter of days. In early January, Jeffrey Whitmore reached out to Malcolm with a settlement offer. My family would agree to give me the house and a portion of the estate if I agreed to drop all criminal charges and sign an NDA preventing me from discussing the case publicly. I refused. I wanted them to face the full consequences of what they had done. The hearing in mid-January was standing room only. Local news cameras lined the courthouse steps. I walked in with Malcolm and Emma by my side, my head held high despite the cameras flashing in my face. Inside, I saw my family for the first time since Christmas Eve. Mother looked older, her carefully maintained appearance showing cracks. Father was stone-faced and angry. Marcus looked uncomfortable and sullen. And Victoria, beautiful Victoria, looked at me with such pure hatred that I almost flinched. Almost, but not quite. The judge was a woman in her 60s, named Patricia Henderson. She reviewed all the evidence with meticulous care. She watched the videos. She read the medical reports. She listened to testimony from Dr. Morrison, the surgeon who had operated on my wrist, and from Patricia, the ER nurse who had treated me. When Victoria took the stand, she stuck to her story. It was an accident. I had tripped. She had tried to catch me but couldn't. She was devastated by what happened. She loved her sister. Then Malcolm played the video. The audio was crystal clear. Victoria's words, "You exist and you're always there, always trying so hard, always making the rest of us look bad by comparison." And then the shove, deliberate, violent, undeniable. Victoria's face went white. The courtroom went silent. Judge Henderson's expression was granite. "This is not ambiguous," she said. "This is assault, clear and intentional assault." The judge reviewed Grandma Eleanor's will next, paying particular attention to the abuse clause. She asked questions about Grandma's mental state when the will was drafted. Malcolm produced testimony from Grandma's lawyer and doctor, both confirming she had been of sound mind and clear purpose. Finally, Judge Henderson delivered her ruling. "It is the finding of this court that Daisy Ashford has provided clear and convincing evidence of ongoing abuse and mistreatment by members of her family, culminating in a violent assault that resulted in serious injury. The abuse clause in Eleanor Ashford's will is valid and enforceable. Therefore, this court orders that Richard Ashford, Margaret Ashford, Victoria Ashford, and Marcus Ashford are hereby disinherited from the estate of Eleanor Ashford. All assets, including the family home and all financial holdings, are to be transferred to Daisy Ashford as the sole heir." The courtroom erupted. Mother let out a wail. Father shouted something about an appeal. Victoria sat frozen, her perfect face a mask of shock. But Judge Henderson wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Prosecution. Miss Victoria Ashford, you will be charged with assault in the second degree. The video evidence makes this a straightforward case, and I expect the DA will pursue it vigorously." Victoria stood up, her lawyer trying to calm her, but she was shaking. "This isn't fair," she said, her voice breaking. "She's my sister. She's lying about everything." "The video doesn't lie," Judge Henderson said firmly. "Court is adjourned." The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the room. It was the sound of justice, the sound of validation, the sound of my entire world shifting on its axis. Malcolm turned to me, his usually composed face showing a genuine smile. "Congratulations, Miss Ashford, you won." I couldn't speak. I could only nod, tears streaming down my face. Emma grabbed my good hand and squeezed it tight. Around us, reporters surged forward, shouting questions, but courthouse security held them back. As we left through a side entrance, I caught one last glimpse of my family. Mother was sobbing into Father's shoulder. Marcus looked bewildered, like he was only just now realizing that actions had consequences. And Victoria stood apart from them all, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Rage, yes, but also something else. Fear, maybe. Or the dawning realization that she had finally pushed too far. I didn't feel triumphant in that moment. I felt hollow, empty. Like I had been carrying a massive weight for so long that now that it was gone, I didn't quite know how to stand up straight. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. The district attorney, a sharp woman named Lisa Torres, took Victoria's case with enthusiasm. The video evidence made her job easy. Victoria was formally charged with assault in the second degree, a felony that carried a potential sentence of up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. Victoria's lawyer tried everything. He claimed it was sibling rivalry gone wrong. He brought in character witnesses who testified about what a good person Victoria was, how involved she was in charity work, how much she volunteered. He tried to paint me as the aggressor, claiming I had provoked her, that the cameras themselves proved I was manipulative and calculating. But the jury didn't buy it. The video was too clear. The injury too severe. The callousness of the aftermath too damning. In March, Victoria was convicted. The judge sentenced her to 3 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory anger management counseling. She also had to pay restitution for my medical bills and legal fees. It wasn't prison, but it was a permanent felony conviction on her record. Her carefully crafted image was destroyed. Her job offers dried up. Her social media following, which she had cultivated so carefully, turned against her. She would carry this with her for the rest of her life. My parents tried to fight the will in a separate proceeding, claiming undue influence, claiming Grandma Eleanor had been manipulated by me, claiming anything they could think of. But Malcolm had prepared for this. He produced evidence of Grandma's sound mind, of her explicit intentions, of her desire to protect me. He also produced more video evidence showing my parents' neglect and favoritism. In April, that case was also dismissed. The will stood. Everything was mine. By May, I was ready to reclaim the house. My family had been given 60 days to vacate the premises. They had tried to delay, filing motion after motion, but Judge Henderson had lost patience with them. She issued a final order. They had until May 15th to be out, or they would be forcibly removed by the sheriff. On May 14th, I drove up to the house in the West Hills for the first time since Christmas Eve. Emma came with me, for moral support. The neighborhood looked the same as always. Beautiful craftsman homes with manicured lawns, expensive cars and driveways, the kind of place where everyone kept up appearances no matter what was rotting underneath. Our house, my house now, looked empty. The curtains were drawn, the lawn was overgrown, which must have infuriated the homeowners association. I walked up to the front door and used the key that Malcolm had given me after the locks were changed. Inside, the house was a disaster. They had left it in shambles, clearly out of spite. Furniture was overturned, holes punched in walls, trash everywhere. The kitchen I had spent so long cleaning and organizing was destroyed, cabinets hanging open, dishes smashed on the floor. But they were gone. That was what mattered. The house could be cleaned. The walls could be repaired. But the poison, the toxicity, the people who had made my life a living hell, they were gone. I walked through each room slowly. My old bedroom, the tiny converted storage space, was untouched. They hadn't even bothered to destroy it, as if I had mattered so little that even revenge wasn't worth the effort. Victoria's room was empty, stripped bare. Marcus's room was trashed, probably by Marcus himself in a final tantrum. And then I reached the master bedroom, my parents' room. There, on the dresser, was a note in Mother's handwriting. "You destroyed this family. I hope you're happy. We will never forgive you." I read it once, then crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. Her forgiveness was worthless to me. I didn't need it. I didn't want it. Emma found me standing in the living room, looking up at the cathedral ceiling where the Christmas tree had stood. "You okay?" she asked softly. "I will be," I said, and I meant it. Over the next few months, I hired contractors to repair the damage. I had the entire house repainted, inside and out. I replaced the furniture they had destroyed or taken. I planted new flowers in the garden. I removed every trace of them, every reminder of the people who had hurt me. I kept only one thing from the old life: Grandma Eleanor's embroidered napkins. I found them in a box in the attic, carefully preserved. I framed mine, the one with the daisy and the words "Brave Heart," and hung it in my bedroom. Physical therapy for my wrist was long and painful, but by summer, I had regained most of my mobility. The scars would always be there, both the physical ones on my wrist and the emotional ones in my heart. But I was learning to live with them, to accept them as part of my story, but not the whole story. In June, I finally had the courage to go through Grandma Eleanor's personal belongings, which had been stored in the attic. Among her things, I found letters. Letters she had written to me but never sent, dated from various times over the years. One, written just a month before she died, made me cry. My dearest Daisy, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and I hope it also means you have found the strength to stand up for yourself. I have watched you suffer for so long, trying so hard to earn love that was never going to be freely given. Your parents, I am ashamed to say, are my failure. I raised your father to be better than this, but somewhere along the way, he forgot what truly matters. And your mother? Well, Margaret has always valued appearances over substance. Victoria learned from them, and poor little Marcus never had a chance to learn anything else. But you, my brave-hearted girl, you are different. You have kindness and strength and resilience. You have a capacity for love that they can never understand because they have never truly loved anyone but themselves. The money, the house, these are just things. What matters is that you know your worth. That you understand you deserve to be loved and respected and treated with kindness. If my will helps you escape them, then my life had purpose. Be brave, my darling. Be free. Live the life you deserve, not the life they tried to force you into. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. I sat in the attic, holding the letter, and cried for an hour. But these were different tears than the ones I had shed on Christmas Eve. These were tears of release, of grief, of gratitude for the one person who had truly seen me and loved me unconditionally. I framed that letter too, and hung it next to the napkin. In August, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. He looked different, older, somehow, though it had only been 8 months. Less arrogant, more uncertain. He saw me and froze, his coffee cup halfway to his mouth. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Daisy." "Marcus," I replied neutrally. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I considered saying no. I had every right to walk away. But something in his face made me pause. He looked genuinely remorseful, which was more than I could say for the rest of our family. We sat at a corner table. Marcus stared into his coffee for a long moment before speaking. "I was a shit brother to you. I was a shit person. I know that now." "Yes, you were," I said, not sugarcoating it. "Mom and Dad moved to Seattle. They're living in a tiny apartment. Dad's business took a huge hit after everything came out. No one wants to work with someone who treated their own daughter like that. Victoria's living with them. She can't find a job with the felony conviction. They're all miserable." He said it like I should feel sorry for them. I didn't. "Good," I said simply. Marcus flinched but nodded. "Yeah, I guess we deserve it. I'm staying with a friend. Trying to finish high school. It's hard, everyone knows what happened. Everyone knows I was part of it." "You were," I said. "You laughed when I was hurt. You never once stood up for me. You were 16, not 6. You knew better." "I did know better," he said quietly. "I was just too selfish and too used to getting everything I wanted to care. But I'm trying to be different now. I got a job. I'm paying my own way. I'm in therapy." That's good, Marcus. I'm glad you're working on yourself. Do you think," he hesitated, "do you think someday you could forgive me?" I thought about it carefully. Maybe someday, but not today, and probably not for a long time. "You hurt me, Marcus. All of you hurt me for my entire life. That doesn't just go away because you say you're sorry." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry. Really, truly sorry. And I'm glad you got out. I'm glad you got what Grandma wanted you to have. You deserve it." It wasn't enough. An apology couldn't undo years of cruelty and neglect. But it was something. A small step toward accountability. More than Mother, Father, or Victoria had ever offered. "Take care of yourself, Marcus," I said, standing up to leave. "You too, Daisy. You too." As I walked out of the coffee shop, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of letting go. I didn't need to carry their weight anymore. I didn't need to hold on to the anger and pain to protect myself, because I was already safe. I had built my own life, my own home, my own future. They couldn't hurt me anymore. In September, I started volunteering at a women's shelter, the same organization that Patricia the nurse had given me information about. I helped other women who were escaping abuse, who were rebuilding their lives, who were learning to set boundaries and value themselves. I understood their pain in a way that someone who hadn't lived it never could. And in helping them, I continued to heal myself. I also went back to school. I had dropped out of college in my junior year because my parents had needed me at home, or so they claimed. Really, they had just wanted a live-in servant. Now, I enrolled at Portland State University to finish my degree in social work. I wanted to help people. I wanted to use my experience to make a difference. Emma remained my closest friend, my chosen family. She introduced me to her circle, and I slowly built a network of people who actually cared about me, who valued me, who treated me with respect. It was strange at first, being around people who were kind without expecting anything in return. But I adjusted. I even started dating, cautiously. Nothing serious, just casual coffee dates and movies. Learning to trust people again was a slow process, but I was committed to it. I refused to let my family's abuse turn me into someone bitter and closed off. I was determined to remain open to love, to friendship, to connection. In October, nearly a year after that terrible Christmas Eve, I hosted a small dinner party at my house. Emma and her boyfriend, a few friends from school, some people I had met through volunteering. We cooked together, laughed together, filled the house with warmth and joy and genuine affection. As I looked around the dining room table, at people who chose to be there, who wanted to spend time with me, I felt something I hadn't felt in that house in all the years I had lived there before. I felt at home. After everyone left, I stood in the kitchen, washing dishes and thinking about how far I had come. From the girl lying broken at the bottom of the stairs, waiting for someone to care, to this, to a life of my own choosing, to freedom, to peace. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Thank you for tonight. Your home is beautiful and so are you. Proud of you always." I smiled and replied, "Thank you for never giving up on me." Later that night, I walked through the quiet house, turning off lights. I passed the framed napkin and letter in the hallway and paused to touch them gently. "Thank you, Grandma," I whispered. "You saved me." In my bedroom, I sat by the window and looked out at the city lights of Portland spreading below. The view was beautiful from up here in the West Hills. I had always loved this view, even in the darkest times. It had reminded me that there was a whole world beyond the walls of this house, beyond the narrow confines of my family's cruelty. And now, that world was mine to explore. I thought about Victoria sometimes, wondering if she ever truly understood what she had done, if she ever felt genuine remorse, or if she only regretted getting caught. I thought about my parents, growing old in their tiny apartment, stripped of their wealth and status, forced to face the consequences of their choices. I thought about Marcus, trying to rebuild himself, whether his remorse was genuine or just a performance. But mostly, I didn't think about them at all. They were my past. They had shaped me, yes. They had hurt me, yes. But they didn't define me. Not anymore. I was Daisy Ashford, survivor. I was Daisy Ashford, heir to Grandma Eleanor's legacy. I was Daisy Ashford, Braveheart. And I was finally free. The scars on my wrist had faded to thin white lines. The emotional scars would take longer, might never fully disappear. But I was healing. Every day, I was healing. On Christmas Eve, nearly a year to the day after everything had fallen apart, I invited Emma over for dinner. We cooked together, nothing fancy, just pasta and salad and wine. We lit candles, we put on music. We made new memories in a house that had held so much pain. At midnight, we stood on the back deck, wrapped in blankets, watching snow begin to fall over Portland. "Last Christmas, you were in a hospital bed," Emma said softly, alone and broken. "This Christmas I'm home," I replied, "and I'm not alone." She squeezed my hand. "You're never going to be alone again. I promise you that." I believed her. For the first time in my life, I believed that I was worthy of love, of friendship, of loyalty. I believed that I deserved good things. I believed in my own strength. The snow fell softly, covering everything in pristine white. A clean slate, a fresh start. I had spent 23 years trying to earn love from people who would never give it. I had sacrificed and suffered and endured, hoping that someday, somehow, I would be enough. But the truth was, I had always been enough. They were the ones who were lacking. They were the ones who failed. And now, I was free to build a life with people who saw my worth, who celebrated my strength, who loved me not despite my scars but because of everything I had overcome to earn them. I thought about that girl who had lain at the bottom of the stairs on Christmas Eve, broken and alone, waiting for someone to care. I wanted to go back and tell her that everything would be okay, that she would survive this, that she would do more than survive, she would thrive. But I couldn't go back. I could only move forward. And so I did, one step at a time, into a future bright with possibility. In January, I received a letter from Victoria. It had been forwarded through Malcolm's office, as per the legal agreement that prohibited direct contact. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was short, no apology, no admission of wrongdoing. Just a bitter rant about how I had ruined her life, how I was vindictive and cruel, how Grandma Eleanor had been manipulated by me, how the whole family was suffering because of my lies. I read it once, then burned it in the fireplace. Her words had no power over me anymore. She could rewrite history in her own mind all she wanted. The truth was documented. The truth had been witnessed. The truth had set me free. I never responded. There was nothing to say. Spring came, and with it, cherry blossoms and warm sunshine, and the sense of renewal that Portland always had this time of year. I planted a garden in the backyard, something I had always wanted to do but never had time for when I was too busy serving my family. Tomatoes and herbs and flowers, things that would grow and thrive under my care. I graduated with my social work degree in May. Emma and a group of friends came to the ceremony, cheering loudly when my name was called. No one from my birth family was there. I didn't care. The family I had chosen was enough. I got a job at the women's shelter, helping other survivors navigate the legal system, find housing, rebuild their lives. Every woman I helped felt like a small victory, a way of honoring what I had been through, a way of making meaning from the pain. Life wasn't perfect. I still had hard days. I still struggled with trust issues and anxiety and the lingering effects of a lifetime of emotional abuse. I went to therapy every week, working through layers of trauma, learning healthy coping mechanisms, rebuilding my sense of self. But life was mine. That was what mattered. For the first time in my entire existence, I was living for myself, making my own choices, following my own path. In June, I did something I had been thinking about for months. I legally changed my name. Not my first name. I was still Daisy, but my last name. I took Grandma's maiden name, Montgomery, Daisy Montgomery. It felt like shedding the last piece of them, the last connection to people who had never valued me. I was reborn. New name, new life, new possibilities. I met someone in July. Her name was Rachel, and she volunteered at the shelter where I worked. She was kind and patient and made me laugh. We took things slowly, building trust brick by brick. She knew my history. I was upfront about it from the beginning, about the trauma, about the healing process I was still in. And she stayed anyway. Everyone has a past, she said. What matters is who you are now, and who you're becoming. And I like both of those people very much. By autumn, we were dating seriously. She moved in with me in October, and suddenly the house felt less like a monument to my pain and more like a home filled with love and laughter and hope. We adopted a dog, a golden retriever mix from the shelter named Sunny. He bounded through the house with endless energy and unconditional love, and I realized I had never really understood what unconditional love meant until I had a dog. He didn't care about my past. He didn't judge me for my scars. He just loved me because I was me. On Christmas Eve, 2 years after everything had changed, Rachel and I hosted a dinner party. Emma and her boyfriend, now fiancé, friends from work, a few of the women I had helped at the shelter who had become friends. The house was full of noise and warmth and joy. We cooked together, all of us in the kitchen, laughing and talking and drinking wine. The food was simple but made with love. No one criticized. No one made cruel comments. No one pushed anyone downstairs. Just love. Just acceptance. Just family, the kind you choose. As we sat down to eat, Rachel squeezed my hand under the table. "You okay?" she whispered. I looked around at the faces of people who cared about me, who valued me, who had chosen to be here. I thought about the girl I had been 2 years ago, broken and alone. I thought about everything I had survived, everything I had overcome. "I'm more than okay," I said. "I'm happy." And I meant it. After 23 years of trying to earn scraps of affection from people who would never give it, after surviving abuse and betrayal and having to fight for basic justice, after losing the family I was born into, I had found something better. I had found myself. I had found my strength. I had found people who loved me for who I was, not what I could do for them. I had found home. Later that night, after everyone had left and Rachel had gone to bed, I stood alone in the living room where it had all begun. The spot where I had lain broken at the bottom of the stairs, waiting for someone to care. I knelt down and placed my hand on the floor, on the exact spot where I had landed. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for breaking, because in breaking, I learned how to rebuild myself stronger." The house was quiet around me, peaceful, mine. I stood up, turned off the lights, and went upstairs to bed, to Rachel, to Sunny, to the life I had fought so hard to claim. Behind me, the past faded into darkness. Ahead of me, the future glowed with light, and I walked toward it, brave-hearted and free, ready for whatever came next, because I had survived the worst. I had faced down my demons and won. I had taken back my power and my peace. They had tried to break me, but I was unbreakable. They had tried to silence me, but I had found my voice. They had tried to make me believe I was worthless, but I knew my worth now. I was Daisy Montgomery, survivor and thriver, and this was my story, my triumph, my happily ever after. Not the one they tried to force on me, but the one I built for myself, from the ashes of what they destroyed, and it was beautiful.